Hey everyone, and welcome to today's webinar with Discovery Education and Otus, making data work for you, insights that drive impact. If we have yet to meet, my name is Kendall Hunter, and I'm excited to be with you all today. I'm the Director of Marketing at Otus, as well as a former middle school special education teacher and reading specialist. In just a moment, I'm going to hand it off to Eileen Cannon for an introduction. But before I do that, I just want to note a few housekeeping items so you have a nice and smooth 30 minutes with us today. First, since this is a webinar, we unfortunately can't see or hear you, but we definitely welcome your participation with questions via the Q&A, and we do have the chat available. Please take a moment now to type in the chat where you're joining us from today, share your role. If you're in a state with particularly warm weather, feel free to make me jealous. I'm in Chicago, so we're not there yet. Regarding questions, we will have dedicated time at the end for questions, but I also want to note that I have a colleague with me here from Otus, Kevin Gallman, our Senior Vice President of Sales, who will be answering your questions in live time. So please feel free to ask away and we'll get you answers as we go and then circle back on questions as a full group at the end. We love questions, so if you see Kevin's name pop up, now you know who that is. Last but not least, yes, this is being recorded, and our friends at Discovery Education will email you the recording tomorrow. So feel free to pass it along to a colleague, revisit if you're stepping away. We've got you covered there. With that, Eileen, did you want to go ahead, do a quick introduction, say hello, kick things off for us?
Sure. Thank you so much, Kendall. My name is Eileen Cannon. I'm here from Alexandria, Virginia, the Director of Teaching and Learning here at Discovery Education. And I'm also a former educator, a curriculum specialist. My real passion in this work, both in schools and partnering with schools, is data-driven instruction. So I'm particularly excited about our partnership with Otus. But to kind of put that in context, I want to tell you a little bit about Discovery Education. So our mission here at Discovery is to inspire curiosity, to build confidence, and to accelerate learning for teachers and students. All of our educators and learners are important to us, and the way that we drive towards this mission is through a few distinct offerings. So you'll see in the next slide, we have quite a few teaching and learning solutions, both supplemental and core, across the core 4 subject areas. We really focus on career exploration and readiness in a number of different exciting ways, especially a new feature that we refer to as Career Connect. We can tell you more about that in a different webinar. We have so many flexible professional learning solutions to help drive your goals. And ultimately, Discovery is home to one of the longest standing kind of ed tech educator communities with Discovery Educator Network, the DEN. It's been around for 20 years, really as a peer network for teachers to grow in their relationships with each other as well as their profession. So these are all super important to Discovery, and you see in this brief index slide the number of different solutions that Discovery offers and how we're so excited with so many different ways to improve learning and to meet our mission, to partner with Otus, which you'll learn a whole lot more about today, to be able to unify a number of different data points and drive your impact to the next level. So with that brief context, I'm really excited. Kendall, just turn it right back over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction and setting the stage there. We too are very excited by this partnership and just the value that we know Otus adds to the already amazing Discovery Education suite of tools. So let's talk about what you can expect from today's webinar. So during our Otus demo today, yes, I'm going to ditch the slide deck in a moment. I promise I'm not going to spend the next 25 minutes talking at you through slides. We're getting into Otus. We will look at how you can bring all of your student data into one place, how to create reports to really assess the impact of the programs that you're using with students. And last, we'll look at how you can use your data to really guide progress monitoring efforts, including by creating plans to track any student goal. So you'll really see how having all your student data and the tools to act on the data, such an important piece, in one place really empowers teachers and helps save everyone valuable time. As a former educator myself and deep in data, similar to Eileen, I personally spent hours sifting through various Excel sheets, managing my logins for I don't know, 5 to 6 different websites that all had the different data sets I needed to understand where my students were. And Otus eliminates these challenges and really gives everyone time back to focus on students. So that is what we're excited to talk through today. And we are going to log into Otus and just start to poke around here. So give me one moment to make sure you're seeing everything that I'm seeing here. All right, so just like that, we are logged into Otus. And when you log in, you have a dashboard that has a variety of metrics, but we're going to breeze right past this and jump right into some specific data sets that we'll talk about as part of our goals. As you can see here on my page, I do have a snapshot of the programs and data that's used in my district. But by clicking on any box here or data set, I can explore that program's data, whether it be performance-based or usage data. And for the sake of our partnership with Discovery Education, I'm going to start here by just showing some Dreambox math usage data. And what I can see right away, I'm just going to kind of talk you through my screen here, is that for the current school year, students are completing just over 6 Dreambox math lessons per week. Now, to add some context here, I'm going to point out this target. I can see that 6 is above the recommended amount of 5 lessons per week. So that's good intel right away. But when I scroll down, I can really dig deeper to see how this data breaks down and what this means for us as a school. So I can see what % of students have no usage, what % of students have low usage, moderate usage, and then those that are at or above the recommended number of lessons per week. So if I click even further here, I can see the students within each level, and I love this feature. So here are my students, nice and organized in a list, who have low Dreambox math usage based on the number of lessons that they're completing each week. So Lucille here is completing just over 1 lesson per week, less than 2. We got to bump that up. So that's just one example of how you can kind of get started with analyzing data in Otus. And as I go back here, I just want to point out this little calendar button because you can look at any data, usage or performance data historically in Otus if that's important to you. So by selecting an option within the calendar, we can look back at the data. We can see usage, in this case, from previous school years.
So, Kendall, I noticed that you were able to grab cohorts based on the usage data that you're looking at. And one of the aspects that a number of our Dreambox Math partners have asked us for over the years is if they can see Dreambox data by subgroup. And I'm curious if Otus can do this for our users.
I love this question. Yes, 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 yes. This is such an important feature. So yes, you can filter by subgroup, but not just by subgroup in many ways. So if I click in the upper right-hand corner here, you can see this show filters option. And we've got lots of different ways you can disaggregate the data. So just to kind of talk you through what I'm looking at here, I want to point out that administrators often like to filter by school or teacher. Well, teachers often like to have the ability to filter by their class or a particular grade level that they might be interested in exploring all of the classes within that grade level for. We've also got demographic information here that you can use to disaggregate your data, excuse me. But then there's this group strap down. So to answer your question, this is how you can isolate subgroups like your English language learners, students with 504 plans or IEPs, depending on your district, factors like free or reduced lunch, students who are chronically absent, any of those groups that are meaningful to your team to be able to see in isolation how those students perform. You can really drill down right in here in real time to see that. And taking it one step further to really drive home how this is available across assessments, I'm going to take a look at a different program. I'm going to take a look at map growth and my students' math data for that particular measure. And right out of the gates here, I want to point out that I can see the same exact filters in the upper right-hand corner there. So you can see that hide filter or show filter in the calendar. So functionality is the same here. But for map growth, we're now looking at performance data. So we're looking at the average math percentile from fall to winter of this school year and a breakdown. So for each season, my students tested, for each school year that they've tested, I have their breakdown by the percentile range. So we were looking at something like lessons and usage before, but now I'm looking at percentile performance on a math measure. And I can see pretty quickly here about 9% of my students are below the 10th percentile. So I love that the navigation across your data sets is exactly the same. As somebody who's been in the weeds of many different programs as a teacher, different data sets are navigated in different ways, but in Otus, it's similar. And that just makes, honestly, digesting the data so much easier because you don't need to learn a new workflow when you go from something like Dreambox into another data set that you want to analyze, maybe your state assessment, whatever it may be. So great question. I know that was a long-winded answer, Eileen. I wanted to cover a couple extra things there, but I think that was a great thing to point out. Subgroups are certainly going to come into play as we keep poking around here. So what we're going to look at next is how Otus reports can help you to explore data in different ways beyond what I would consider kind of a surface level exploration that we were just doing. So we're going to look at two reports today. And the first report, I've kind of already prepped this just for the sake of time here, but this is our query report. And I like to think of this tool as a search your data feature. Query reports help you find students who meet a specific criteria. For example, students with scores above or below a certain level. So kind of building off what we were looking at with Dreambox, I want to see which students have low usage of Dreambox Math and are not meeting grade level standards according to my state's math assessment. So I've kind of typed that in already to generate this quickly, but it would take you all of a minute to do on your own. So in this report, let's just take a look at what we're seeing here because these reports are so powerful. Right away, I can see of my entire district, just under 5% of my population meets this criteria. And that's a good thing, right? We don't want to have that many students within our population below grade level standards on our state assessment. So this right away is like a poof, okay, we've only got 72 students who meet this criteria. If we see a big number here, we might need to look back at what we've set. You get some demographic information. So this is the breakdown of the students in this population. And a tool that I love is that it shows you which student groups are represented in your data. So of all the students in this report, 6 of them are English language learners. And by clicking any of these kind of interactive filters is what I'm going to call them on the right-hand side, we can narrow down a big group into an even smaller group. So now we're down to 3.7% of my population. And at the bottom here, we've got a handy little list of the students who meet this criteria, including their names, their actual lessons per week on Dreambox, their state test data that put them in this report. So this is an incredibly powerful tool for finding students at or below, above, or at a particular level. Truly so many use cases that we could run through. But for the sake of time, we are going to look at a different report here. And we are going to take things a step further. So we were finding students. Now we're going to look at a historical report. And a historical report is really great for looking at trends over time for groups of students. I also like this for comparing performance across measures. So really looking at validating various trends that you're seeing across student performance measures or assessments that you're using. So I built this report that we're looking at now to answer the question of what impact does consistent use of Dreambox Math have on my students' math performance? And I'm looking at my map growth first to kind of see what the impact is. But along the right-hand side here, I do want to call out these two groups because this is what makes up those two lines. So we're looking at, in blue, students who have more than 3 Dreambox Math lessons per week. And then in green, students who have less than 3 Dreambox lessons per week. And these do not have to be usage-based. This can absolutely be based on subgroup, demographic, sky's the limit here. But for the sake of what we've been looking at, I wanted to see what's the impact here. So what we can see here for map growth, we're looking at math again. We can see the average percentile on math between the two groups here. And we can pretty quickly see that there's a gap and that students using the program regularly are outperforming those who are not. But like all good data scientists here, we got to look behind one measure. We need to validate what we're seeing across different data points in different periods of time. And you can do this with any meaningful measure in your school in the same report. So let's just take a look at state data for the heck of it. Students take their state assessment at the end of the year. we're going to look at the same groups, but for that state assessment. And no matter what state you're in, your data can go right in here into this report. So we're looking at the same groups, but I want to call out the visual is not as drastic. We're seeing a gap between the overall math performance level, about 2.8 to 2.5 between the two groups, but it's not as drastic as what we were seeing with math growth. So maybe we want to look at something else. What about benchmarking? If your school administers universal screening or benchmarking, we need to look at that too. We got to have multiple data points here. And that's exactly what I did. You can see across the top here, I've just handpicked a couple data sets. You can pick exactly what you want to look at very easily. You can pull from any of your data. So we're looking at FastBridge, but if you use Renaissance Star, iReady, AimsWeb, whatever tool you use, you can see this data in the report. So thinking about FastBridge A math, that's one of their measures. We're looking at the same student cohorts here, and we are seeing a bit of a gap again between those students using Dreambox math regularly and those who are not. So this was truly just a 30,000 foot view snapshot of the types of reports you can create here. If you have any questions about student performance data, you can visualize the answer through these reports.
Kendall, I mean, it's such rich data and the possibilities go on and on and on. I am particularly impressed by how you can decide so efficiently which subgroup to compare with different usage values over there on a test again. I mean, this is really, really powerful. So I guess my question is, because mentioning my interest in data-driven instruction earlier, you can imagine I would go all the way down the rabbit hole and compare all sorts of different subgroups to see what patterns I could find. But ultimately, I feel like as educators, we often arrive at a similar question, whether we're diving deep into the data or if we're just looking at a few different data points. So, for the educators I work with, that common question is usually, okay, now what? I've done this analysis. Is there more opportunity in Otus to kind of impact how that data might change over time? That thought pattern that's going through my head as I see, oh, I want to make it better. So the now what question is a big one.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think that's such an important piece of the puzzle here, and just kind of appreciate you flagging that that's something that we need to explore here. So I am just give me one moment here to get my screen sorted. We've got some extra stuff in there. Okay. If it's okay with you, Eileen, I'm just gonna dial it back to answer this question and add a little context by pulling up a slide. I will show you this in Otus again, but I like to add a context when I can. So yes, you can take action on this data in Otus, and this is really what differentiates Otus from other data warehouses and programs. And that is because in the same place where all of your student data is housed, where you're creating all those reports, where everything that we just looked at is, you can also create custom progress monitoring plans. And you can use the reports that we've been looking at to identify students in need. Think about that query report, find your students in need of enrichment or extension. This is particularly useful to many schools' MTSS processes that are already in place, but there's so many different ways you can flag students who have needs. And then in Otus, you can build progress monitoring plans to support students and their goals. They're collaborative, so multiple teachers or staff can support a student. You don't have to work in a vacuum to ensure student needs are met. I think that's such a huge piece of the puzzle. And the goals can be truly anything. So whether you're tracking academic needs, behavioral needs, attendance-based, goals related to future readiness, all of that is possible within our progress monitoring plans. It's an entirely different module within Otus in terms of I'm going to pull this back up here. Just give me 1 second. So when you're back in Otus, we were in analytics before. This looks familiar. We recognize it. We were creating reports. We were analyzing data, but now we're going to go down to plans. So it's not a new or different website that you need to launch or go to. You're in the same place, but now you're looking at your progress monitoring efforts. So I'm just going to give you kind of the 30,000 foot view here to show you this, but there's so much more you can do. So I'm in an MTSS plan. Right away, I can see overall how students who my school is supporting are progressing towards the goals of their individual plan. And no two students' goals or plans are the same, right? These are individualized. I can see that about 56% of the students who I'm supporting, they're on track. let's take a look at a student who's on track. We're going to look at Earl here. So right out of the gates, I want to point out that we can see the priority data points that the team is monitoring for Earl. And these can be reading based, they can be behavior based. We've got some reading and math goals for Earl here, or data points that we're prioritizing. But below that, we get into Earl's specific goals, including the reading goals that Earl is working on with teachers. And if I go down here, I can see some math, additional supplemental goals, but let's talk about math because we've been talking about math today. So kind of putting my teacher hat on to play out how this plan works and how it connects to what we've been talking about. Let's think about that result of the data we just kind of dove into. As a result of that, we think Earl needs to be using Dreambox math consistently. I think we saw that there was a gap between overall performance, and we want Earl to be using the program a bit more. But we don't want to just talk about it, right? We want to put a plan in place. We want to track it. We want to make sure we are accountable for this, because Earl has needs that need to be supported beyond just, the general population. So as a result of that deep dive, we added a goal for Earl that by the third quarter, he needs to be completing 3 or more Dreambox math lessons per week. And we can collectively update that goal, track progress over time for that goal, and really see that progress as it occurs. And if we're not updating it, or if we're not meeting that goal, we can then as a team sit down and say, hey, what do we need, to do next? What do we need to do to get Earl using this program to hopefully see some of those decreased scores or areas of opportunity change? So I love these plans. We have so many different ways that they can be used to support student needs. Unfortunately, I don't have time to dig into it all today. I'm going to show you one more thing in Otus, and then I'm going to take some questions from Eileen and take some questions from you all. I haven't had a chance to look in the chat yet. I'm thinking there's some good stuff going on in there. But let's just bring it full circle here to talk about how every single piece of information on a student in Otus funnels back to what we call the student profile. Every student has a profile where you can see their progress monitoring data, where you can see any plans that they're on. You can see classroom assessments. And in this reports tab here, you can see current, historical, any data from while they've been in the district. As a former special education teacher, this is the page I needed to pull up during our problem solving meetings to say, hey, let's look at the recent data. We don't need to pull up our Google Sheets. I love Google Sheets, but let's stay out of the sheets. Let's look at progress over time in one place across AimsWeb, attendance, whatever it may be. Any data point in your district that a student has will be in their profile. And this just makes it so easy to wrap our supports around our students and really give them what they need. So that kind of concludes the live demo portion of Otus, but I think there might be some questions, or Eileen, what can I help to clarify based on what we've shown so far?
Well, I am, I think you might see kind of my eyeballs coming out of my head here, because there's so many possibilities. I mean, we've looked at various measures, right, that you're able to import and put up next to one another, really analyze along a number of lines. We've looked at progress monitoring with a specific action plan, like this slide represents. I guess what I'm curious about from that kind of teaching and learning perspective is we've gone very high level with assessment or usage and product data, and then we went even deeper into each child's profile or making some targeted action plans per child. What about the day-to-day of teaching and learning, like in Tier 1 classroom? Is Otus kind of touching that process at all?
Yes, great question. I think it's so important that we touch on the day-to-day and those needs that teachers may have. So when it comes to teachers using Otus and their ability to kind of collect those daily touch points to see where students are, Otus absolutely helps with that. So just like administrators, teachers see every data point. We've kind of been in the view that they would have for looking at and analyzing some of those different assessments, but teachers can see grades, behavior, attendance, whatever it may be. But taking it a step further, teachers can actually deliver assessments directly in Otus to capture real-time progress towards learning standards and adjust instruction. So in addition to being able to see any of the measures that you're administering to students, like maybe beginning of year, middle of year, end of year, those types of benchmarks, you can see the day-to-day on formative, summative, or common assessments. And what's great is you can build your own assessments. We all like to build our own from time to time, but a really nice value add is our library of ready-made assessments. So no need to reinvent the wheel. We have a library of a variety of curriculum assessments that are ready to go and available the day you start using Otus, which I think is fantastic. You've got all of these ready to deliver digitally in Otus. But what I want to call out on here is a logo on this slide that you all are actually the first to know about, or I think you're the first to know about. Thanks to our partnership with Discovery Education, Mystery Science is being added to our already awesome library of curriculum assessments. And the reason I want to call that out is kind of circling back to your question about what teachers can do with an Otus. Whether it's Mystery Science or a different assessment type or just a homegrown one you want to build to give us a quick temperature check, with the assessments, students benefit from that interactive experience. It's especially important if we consider that all high stakes tests these days are digital, so this kind of prepares them for that environment. But teachers get that real-time data right after students submit the assessment that they can use to say, hey, are we moving past this tomorrow, or are we reteaching it? Are we reteaching some of it? Okay, what is some of it that we need to reteach? It's all available within Otus, that data in real time. So that's just a huge and exciting thing to keep in mind as we head into the new school year, but we are super excited about adding Mystery Science to this library.
Dr. Bracken, at just the right time. I am really, really impressed by this element of Otus. And the reason is this is day-to-day instruction, right? I recognize a number of those core curriculum products that even, our partners who leverage Discovery Solutions as a supplement, including Mystery Science, right? They're using Bridges, they're using Envision Math, they're using Eureka Math Squared. And a lot of the titles I see here are familiar from our partners' day-to-day work. And so the fact that we can have this incredible combination of long-term summative assessments with even, to your point, like unit tests, the things that teachers are using to inform their instruction every day, plus, supplements like Dreambox in between. Being able to bring this data together is super powerful for teaching and learning. Thank you so much for walking. I mean, obviously, we could spend so much more time on each feature and functionality, but you gave such a powerful overview. It really inspired me to want to learn more. I'm curious if we have questions coming in that we can answer. We have about 3 minutes remaining in our webinar time.
Evan, I hate to put you on the spot, but did anything jump out as like let's talk about it before we wrap up today? I know you've been, I can kind of glean from the chat here, you've been fielding left and right. What do we need to talk about?
Yeah, no, a ton of great questions and a lot of procedural questions about what kind of data can we have in, what does that process look like? Just to summarize, our team at Otus will work with any set of data that ties to a student. So those questions around, can we do this? Can we do that? We can put any set of data in. Questions came around with our plans module. How can we customize those? Those are really meant to fit the process of a district. So Otus doesn't say this is the plan you have to follow. We're going to work on what is happening in your district, and we're going to support that process. We also had a question here towards the end about AI and the integration of AI, and something that'll be probably one of our next webinars is the use of AI in analyzing all this great data and being able to be a teaching assistant for teachers to say, here's what the data says, here's what some great next steps are going to be. So informing groups and then also looking at what are the resources that we should allocate to those next steps. So really appreciate all the questions that have come in. There's a couple more. Kristen, you asked a question about grouping students at similar levels in the classroom and grade level. Absolutely. As we look at our assessment tools, we're able to do that. School districts, private schools as well. Krista had a question. Yes, any school we'll work with to be able to support. So further questions that you have, I know Kendall's going to have some kind of next steps for us, but all of these questions that the group has had are things that typically come up, and just looking forward to what comes next and following up with the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin. Just to echo that, I think the beauty of Otus is that you can really build out your reports and your data based on what's meaningful to your team. And I think, that is such an important part of who we are. We're not a one size fits all solution, right? You might have plans to focus on your profile of a graduate, social, students who have specific behavioral skills you're working on. You really can customize based on grade level needs, school needs, district initiatives, as well as the data that associates with that. So I love seeing the questions on customizing. That's huge. As an added bonus for just joining us and taking time together, I am dropping in the chat now a free resource from Discovery and Otus. It is a guide to leveraging data to make smart decisions. So I shared that now. Feel free to take a look at it. There's some really good tips and tricks in there. I would bring this to your next team meeting, maybe do a little like coffee chat around what you're seeing in there. There's some great content for you there. As Kevin mentioned, we would absolutely love to continue the conversation with all of our Discovery Education partners here around how we can support your unique needs, challenges, and be a solution for that. So we certainly would love to continue the conversation. If you're just looking to get like hey, I want to learn more about Otus as a whole, we're otusotus.com. You can definitely learn more about all the different tools we have there. I put that in the chat too. But I want to give a shout out to Kevin and Eileen for just being incredible partners on this short 31-minute session today. Eileen, any parting words before we close it down for today?
No, I'm really grateful to you and to the team because this partnership is going to be really powerful. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. And I was browsing through the chat. I have some friends in here who are also not in warm places. Stay warm, avoid the storms for those of you who chatted about that, and just have a great day, y'all. Thank you.